Hi, I'm Sophia Khan. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a Deputy Title IX Coordinator for Student Matters here at Stanford.
Hi there, my name is Carly Flannery. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a part of the Share Title IX Office's education team.
We're here to talk to you today about some changes to Stanford's sexual harassment policies and procedures, as well as resources that are available to you during this time, whether you're on or off campus.
We do want to acknowledge that the content that we'll be discussing throughout this video does relate to sexual and relationship violence, stalking, sexual harassment, and other forms of discrimination that can bring up distress and other feelings. So we do encourage you to take care of yourself in whatever ways feel best for you.
We do want to ensure that our community is updated regarding the changes to our name and structure. The newly configured Sexual Harassment/Assault Response and Education, or SHARE, Title IX office is the university office charged with addressing sexual harassment and assault through response, prevention, and education work. There are two teams within the SHARE Title IX office: the response team, which is formerly the Title IX office, and the education team, which is formerly the SARA and SHPO offices. It's important to note that we are operating remotely and available during fall quarter of 2020 due to COVID-19 restrictions. Please reach out to us to book a virtual appointment using video or phone methods, and know that we are also still available via email and phone.
Many of you may be aware that in May of this year, the federal government issued Title IX regulations. These regulations require schools to use certain definitions for conduct that is considered Title IX conduct, and to use certain procedures when it comes to responding to that conduct. Schools do have the ability under the regulations to issue their own code of conduct policies and their own procedures for any conduct that's not covered by the regulations. So on August 14th, in accordance with these federal regulations, Stanford issued a new sexual harassment policy as well as new procedures. On the policy side, Stanford's Administrative Guide, Section 1.7.1, now defines what conduct is expected of all Stanford community members when it comes to sexual harassment, sexual assault, and other forms of prohibited sexual conduct. On the process side, Stanford developed three procedures: the Title IX procedure, the SHARE hearing procedure, and the SHARE investigation procedure that describe the manner in which Stanford investigates and adjudicates alleged violations of Administrative Guide 1.7.1. We'll get more into policy and process on the coming slides. Admin Guide 1.7.1 includes both Title IX prohibited conduct, as that has been defined by the federal government, as well as university prohibited conduct, which is broader than the federal government's definitions. There are 6 types of conduct that are set forth in 1.7.1: sexual harassment, sexual assault, relationship violence, stalking, violation of a university or court order, and retaliation and intimidation. Under sexual harassment, note that there are 3 separate categories: Title IX sexual harassment, and that's the federal government's definition, which is somewhat narrow. So the university has enacted employment-related sexual harassment, which applies to employees of the university, and university prohibited sexual harassment between students, which applies to students. When it comes to sexual assault, we have adopted the federal government's definitions, which incorporate our definitions of incapacitation and affirmative consent. And we've also prohibited 2 additional acts, which include inducing incapacitation and recording and distributing sexual activity without consent. And finally, when it comes to relationship violence, in addition to the dating and domestic violence definition set forth by the government, we also now prohibit psychological abuse for the first time.
If you've experienced prohibited sexual conduct, including sexual harassment, sexual assault, relationship violence, or stalking, what happened is not your fault. You always deserve to be safe and respected. Stanford has confidential and non-confidential resources to help. Regardless of what you decide, there are many people at Stanford University who are committed to helping students, faculty, and staff. Stanford recognizes that individuals who have experienced sexual harassment, sexual assault, Relationship violence or stalking often want and need a confidential person to talk to who can help them process what has happened, understand the support and resources available to them, and consider their options. Under state and federal law, only certain individuals who have professional status, for example, mental health professionals and clergy, are in legally protected roles that permit them to guarantee confidentiality to those who consult with them. Stanford community members may contact the following resources for confidential counseling and support. The confidential support team consists of licensed mental health professionals who specialize in sexual, relationship, and gender-based violence. They provide free consultation, crisis support, and referrals, which is available to all students, no matter where they're located, as well as ongoing therapy, which is only available for students located in California due to state licensing rules. You can learn more about the confidential support team at www.baden.stanford.edu/CST. You can also contact them via their 24/7 hotline at 650-725-9955. Additionally, the YWCA of Silicon Valley, which is a third-party advocacy service for survivors, is now available at Stanford. The YWCA consists of confidential, independent resource for survivors of sexual assault, relationship violence, and human trafficking. They provide criminal and systems advocacy, court accompaniment, sexual assault forensic exam accompaniment, personal advocacy, counseling, crisis support, therapy for those located in California only, support groups, safety planning, and legal services support. Their 24/7 support line is 800-572-2782. Please do note that some services are only available locally in Santa Clara County. For those living out of the area, support is provided to connect with local resources. Importantly, due to COVID-19 restrictions, these resources are operating remotely during the fall quarter of 2020. In addition to the primary resources listed above, there are additional confidential resources, which include the Office of the Ombuds, Clergy and Office for Religious Life, and the Counseling and Psychological Services Office. Additionally, the following non-confidential Stanford University resources and offices are available. To make a report, contact the Share Title IX office. You can contact the response team by emailing title9@stanford.edu or calling 650-497-4955. The education team can be reached at sarahoffice@stanford.edu or by calling 650-725-1056. For immediate assistance, please reach out to your RAs or RDs if you are an undergraduate student. RDs are available for 27 support by calling 650-504-8022. Graduate students should access their community assistance, or for more urgent matters, the Graduate Life Office DNR. The 24/7 GLOW pager is 650-723-7280, and the pager ID number is 25085. You can also email 25085@pagemoon.stanford.edu. Except for the confidential resources listed on the previous slide, all faculty, staff supervisors, and student-facing staff, including many student staff members such as RAs and TAs, are responsible employees and must share information with the Title IX.
You may be wondering what happens when the Share Title IX office receives a report. And in this slide and the coming slides, I hope to demystify that a little bit for you. In almost all cases, when we receive a report, the first step is to reach out to the impacted party with what we call a gentle outreach email. The email is intended to connect the student with resources, most significantly the confidential support team and the YWCA Silicon Valley that were mentioned a few slides back, and also to offer the student ourselves as a resource, to meet with someone from our office and determine what options are available to them, whether it be an informal option or a formal option, and how they might access those options. And finally, the email informs the student about supportive measures that are available to them, regardless of what other choices they make. And I'll get into supportive measures a little bit on the next slide. To elaborate a little bit more on supportive measures, these are measures that all complainants are entitled to, regardless of whether an investigation is initiated. The types of supportive measures available include mutual contact restrictions between the parties, counseling, assistance seeking academic or housing modifications, and safety measures. It's important to note that with respect to supportive measures, there's a case-by-case assessment. We endeavor to work with impacted parties to figure out what they might need in any given case and how we might be able to help them. Supportive measures are also available to respondents on an equitable basis. What happens after that initial outreach email from the Share Title IX office to the impacted party really depends. A complainant may meet with someone from our office for more information and to explore or access supportive measures. A complainant may request an investigation, or a complainant can choose to take no action at all. In most cases involving student respondents, the complainant retains agency over whether an investigation will occur. The only exception to that is whether aggravating factors are present. So those include violence, such as a weapon that goes above the sexual violence that was reported, or multiple reports to our office about the same individual. In cases involving faculty and staff respondents, on the other hand, Stanford may be required to investigate under state law. However, in any case, complainants are never forced to participate in an investigation. If they do not participate, the university's ability to respond may be limited. In this slide, I want to give you a little bit of insight into Stanford's procedures without overwhelming you with too many details or getting too in the weeds. As I mentioned, Stanford developed 3 procedures to deal with sexual harassment and assault-related complaints: the Title IX procedure, the Share hearing procedure, and the Share investigation procedure. Starting in the box on the upper left-hand side, the Title IX procedure. This procedure governs conduct that was defined by the federal government as Title IX conduct if it occurred after August 14th of 2020. So if we receive a report of Title IX conduct from after August 14th, regardless of who the respondent is, whether it be a student, a staff member, a faculty member, or a postdoc, the Title IX procedure applies. The Title IX procedure allows for an investigation that culminates in a hearing. And some of the significant differences here with this procedure that were required by the federal government are the filing of a formal complaint at the outset to initiate an investigation, and at the hearing, at the end, live cross-examination by each party's advisor of the other party and any witnesses. The other 2 procedures, the Share hearing and investigation procedures, govern conduct that falls outside of the scope of Title IX. So that may be conduct that doesn't meet the definitions of Title IX conduct, that occurred before August 14th, that occurred outside of the United States, or to a non-Stanford complainant. If the report we received doesn't check one of those boxes, then it'll be governed by one of these 2 procedures. And which procedure applies depends on the status of the respondent. If the respondent is a faculty member or a student, then the Share hearing procedure applies. That procedure calls for an investigation and a hearing very similar to the Title IX procedure, but different in certain respects. Perhaps most significantly, this procedure doesn't allow for live cross-examination of parties by the other party's advisor. Instead, cross-examination at a hearing under the Share hearing procedure occurs in writing through the hearing officer. Now, on the other hand, if a respondent is a staff member or a postdoc and the conduct falls outside of Title IX scope, then the applicable procedure is the Share investigation procedure. This procedure is a little different in that it allows for an investigation, but there's no hearing. Instead, the investigator will submit a report to an internal Stanford decision maker. Regardless of which process is used, students are entitled to attorney time free of cost with an attorney of their choice from a panel of university identified attorneys. The number of attorney hours that are provided for students depends on which process is used, but in all cases, it is an increase over what was previously provided under our old procedures. Also, regardless of which process is used, all investigations are conducted by trained, trauma-informed investigators, and any hearings that occur under either the Title IX procedure or the share hearing procedure are conducted by a single, external, neutral hearing officer. In cases where there's a student complainant and a student respondent, those cases can also be resolved informally without a hearing, regardless of the case falling under the Title IX procedure or the share hearing procedure. In cases where there's a student complainant and a staff or faculty respondent, informal resolutions are not available.
It is important to know that there is support available throughout any and all of these processes. Any student going through a Title IX or share procedure is entitled to a support person of their choosing. This could be an attorney, a friend, a parent, or an RA or RD, for example. Stanford does provide students with a certain number of hours of free attorney time. This number of hours depends on which process is being used. And the attorneys come from a panel who contract with Stanford to provide these services. If a matter does reach a hearing and the student does not have a support person identified, one will be designated for them for purposes of conducting cross-examination at the hearing. Thanks so much for listening today. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or need any assistance.